38 years of marriage taught me that love meant trust. I was wrong. My name is Maggie Sullivan, and I'm 64 years old. For nearly 4 decades, I lived what everyone called the perfect marriage. Bob was a meticulous accountant, the kind of man who color-coded his file folders and never missed a payment deadline, the kind of man who kissed my forehead every Tuesday at 2 o'clock sharp before heading to the bank. "Just taking care of our future, Maggie," he'd say, his briefcase clicking shut with that familiar snap. I never questioned it, not once in 38 years. That trust cost me everything. The heart attack took Bob on a Wednesday afternoon. He collapsed at his desk, surrounded by spreadsheets and ledgers, gone before the ambulance arrived. The funeral drew 200 people, all of them praising my devoted husband, my rock, my partner in the perfect marriage everyone envied. I stood beside his casket in my black dress, accepting condolences, believing every word they said about him. 3 days later, the truth arrived in my mailbox. The envelope was plain white, official bank letterhead, the kind Bob used to file away immediately in his color-coded system. I almost set it aside with the sympathy cards. Almost. "Dear Mrs. Sullivan, you are listed as co-owner on Safety Deposit Box 847. We require your presence to review its contents." Co-owner. I'd never heard of Box 847. My hands started shaking before I understood why. The bank was the same one Bob had visited every Tuesday for years, the same teller who'd smiled at him, who'd probably handed him the key to that box week after week while I sat at home believing his lies. The manager led me to the vault, her heels clicking against marble floors that suddenly felt like ice beneath my feet. She inserted her key. I inserted mine, the one they'd mailed me, the one I'd never known existed. The box slid out. Inside were documents, stacks of them. My throat tightened as I recognized the headers, the official seals, the signatures that looked like mine but weren't. Investment statements, every one of them stamped "total loss" in red ink. $400,000. My entire retirement savings, gone. Vanished into failed stock ventures and cryptocurrency schemes I'd never heard of, never approved, never even knew existed. But that wasn't all. Mortgage documents. 3 of them. Bob had refinanced our house, the house we'd paid off 15 years ago, not once, not twice, but 3 separate times. $270,000 in debt secured against the home I thought we owned free and clear. My vision blurred. I gripped the edge of the table and then I saw the credit card statements. 15 cards, all in my name, all with my forged signature. $96,000 in charges I'd never made, for purchases I'd never seen, at restaurants I'd never visited and hotels I'd never stayed in. At the bottom of the box lay a handwritten letter on Bob's personal stationery. "My dearest Maggie, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've discovered my mistakes. I know you'll be angry, you have every right to be, but please understand, I only wanted to protect you from my failures. The investments seemed sound. The opportunities seemed real. I thought I could fix everything before you ever had to know. I'm sorry I wasn't the man you believed I was. I love you. Bob." I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully, placed it back in the box, and walked out of that bank with $43 in my checking account and a rage so pure it kept my spine straight all the way to my car. Protect me. He'd bankrupted our retirement, forged my name, buried me in debt and called it protection. I told the kids that evening. David, my son, went pale. He sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Bob had carved the Thanksgiving turkey every year, smiling like the devoted family man everyone believed him to be, and didn't speak for a full minute. "Mom," he finally said, his voice rough. "Dad tried this with me too." My heart stopped. Last year. He asked me to invest Jenny's college fund in some cryptocurrency thing, said it was a sure bet that we'd triple the money in 6 months. David's jaw clenched. Jenny told him no. She said if he needed money that badly, he should tell you. He laughed it off, said she didn't understand finance. So it wasn't just me. Bob had been willing to gamble away his granddaughter's education too. Emily, my daughter, took it differently. "You're lying!" She stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "Dad would never— He loved you. He loved all of us. This is you trying to destroy his memory because you're angry he's gone." "Emily!" "No," her voice cracked. "I won't listen to this. You're making him into a monster when he can't even defend himself." She left. Didn't answer my calls for 2 weeks. I let her go. I had bigger battles to fight. At 64 years old, I learned what it meant to start over. $43 doesn't go far. I cancelled the cable, switched to the cheapest phone plan, started clipping coupons for the first time since the 80s. The grocery store cashier, a woman I'd known for years, didn't comment when my card was declined, and I had to put back the good coffee, the real butter, the little luxuries I'd taken for granted. I walked out with generic everything, and my head held high. Then I got a job. The bookstore on Maple Street needed help. Minimum wage, part-time, shelving books and running the register. The owner, Carol, was 73 and didn't ask questions about why a woman my age suddenly needed work. She just handed me an apron and showed me how to use the inventory system. It felt good to have a purpose again, to earn money that was mine, in an account only I controlled. But I needed more than a paycheck. I needed justice. The lawyer's office smelled like old paper and expensive leather. Marcus Chen had built his reputation defending victims of financial fraud. His fees weren't cheap, but he took one look at my evidence and agreed to work on contingency. "This is egregious," he said, flipping through the forged documents. "Your husband committed multiple felonies, identity theft, fraud, forgery. If he were alive, he'd be facing serious prison time." "He's not alive," I said. "But the bank is, and they're demanding I pay his debts." Marcus's expression hardened. "Then we'll show them exactly what their customer did." The lawsuit took 4 months to prepare. 4 months of depositions and document reviews, of reliving every lie, every forged signature, every penny stolen from my future. The bank fought hard. They claimed I must have known, must have benefited, must have been complicit somehow. Their lawyer was a woman in a designer suit who looked at me like I was stupid. "Mrs. Sullivan," she said during my deposition, her voice dripping with condescension, "you lived with this man for 38 years. You shared a home, a bed, a life. And you expect us to believe you noticed nothing, that you had no idea he was making these transactions?" I met her eyes, didn't blink. "I expect you to understand the difference between trust and complicity. I trusted my husband. That trust was a lie. But my signature on those documents— I pushed the stack of forged papers across the table. Those are lies too. And fraud is fraud, regardless of whether the victim shares a bedroom with the criminal." She looked away first. The trial was brief. The evidence was overwhelming. Handwriting analysis proved Bob had forged my signature on every single document. Bank records showed he'd made the transactions alone during those mysterious Tuesday afternoon visits I'd never questioned. The judge was a grey-haired man who'd probably seen 1,000 fraud cases, but even he looked disgusted as he reviewed the evidence. "This court finds that Mrs. Margaret Sullivan was the victim, not the perpetrator or accomplice, of systematic financial fraud perpetrated by her late husband. All debts incurred through forged authorization are hereby declared void and unenforceable against Mrs. Sullivan's assets." I walked out of that courthouse with my home still mine and my dignity intact. It wasn't the $400,000 back. It wasn't the retirement I'd planned. But it was something Bob had stolen that mattered more than money. It was my right to decide my own future. Emily called me 3 weeks after the trial. "Mom." Her voice was small, broken. "I found something." She came over that evening carrying a box of her father's old papers, things she'd kept as mementos. In it was a credit card statement, her name, her signature. Except she'd never signed it. $23,000 in charges, hotels in cities she'd never visited, restaurants she'd never been to. Bob had done to her exactly what he'd done to me. We sat at my kitchen table, That same table where he'd played the perfect father and cried together. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I called you a liar. I said you were destroying his memory." "And all along You loved your father," I said, holding her hand. "That's not wrong. But love doesn't mean we ignore the truth." Emily wiped her eyes. "What do we do now?" "We fight back," I said. Together. Carol, my boss at the bookstore, listened to my story over coffee one Saturday morning. She didn't interrupt, didn't offer platitudes, just listened while I laid out everything Bob had done. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "My ex-husband did something similar," she finally said. "Not as extreme, but similar enough. Took out a loan in my name, forged my signature, used it to fund his girlfriend's shopping habit." She smiled grimly. "That was 40 years ago. There was no help for women like us back then. We just absorbed the damage and moved on." "That's not right," I said. "No," Carol agreed. "It's not." That conversation planted a seed. 2 months later, we started a support group. Every Thursday evening, the bookstore's back room became a sanctuary for women dealing with financial abuse in their marriages. Some were still married, trapped by fear or circumstance. Others, like me, were picking up the pieces after the truth came out. We called it the Tuesday Group, in honor of Bob's deception. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. I shared my story at every meeting. Not as a victim seeking pity, but as a survivor offering proof that fighting back was possible, that reclaiming your life was possible. Emily came to the meetings too. She stood up one evening and told 20 strangers how her father had stolen her identity and how her mother had taught her that love meant accountability, not blind faith. I'd never been prouder. 1 year after Bob's death, I went to a new bank across town. The building was modern, all glass and steel, nothing like the marble mausoleum where Bob had hidden his secrets. I opened a new account. The banker, a young woman with kind eyes, asked what name I wanted on the account. I didn't hesitate. "Margaret Sullivan," I said. Not Mrs. Robert Sullivan. Not Maggie, the diminutive Bob had preferred. Margaret. My full name. The name I'd had before marriage. The name I was reclaiming now. She typed it in, handed me the signature card. I signed it, my real signature, the one that was mine alone, and felt something shift inside my chest. Freedom. The Tuesday group held its 1-year anniversary meeting last week. 47 women showed up. 47 stories of financial abuse, of forged signatures and hidden debts, of trust weaponized against them, but also 47 stories of survival, of women who'd learned to read their own bank statements, to check their credit reports, to ask questions instead of accepting reassurances, of women who'd left abusive marriages or stayed and demanded transparency, of women who'd rebuilt their lives from $43 or less and created something new. Emily stood up to speak. She'd started a blog about financial literacy for young women, teaching them to recognize red flags, to protect their credit, to never let anyone, no matter how much they claimed to love you, control their financial future. "My father was a good man in many ways," she told the room, "but love isn't an excuse for fraud. Trust isn't the same as permission. And we don't honor the dead by protecting their lies." The room erupted in applause. I sat in the back, watching my daughter own her truth, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. I still work at the bookstore. The pay is still minimum wage, the hours still part-time, but Carol made me co-owner last month. We're expanding the Thursday meetings, bringing in financial advisors and lawyers who volunteer their time to help women navigate the legal system. My retirement won't look like I planned. I won't have the house in Florida or the European cruises Bob and I used to dream about. I'll work longer than I expected, save harder, build slower. But it will be mine. Every dollar earned, every decision made, every signature genuine. Bob left me with $43 and a mountain of lies. He thought he was protecting me. But what he really did was trap me in a carefully constructed illusion of security while he gambled away our future. I don't miss the illusion. The truth is harder, colder, lonelier sometimes. The truth means David checks in every Sunday worried I'm not eating enough or working too hard. It means Emily sends me screenshots of her credit report every month, both of us vigilant against threats that might never come. It means I lie awake some nights, wondering what else Bob hid, what other shoes might drop. But the truth also means I know exactly how much money is in my account. I know every debt, every asset, every signature is mine. I know that the life I'm building, modest as it is, belongs to me. And I know that love, real love, isn't blind trust. Real love is transparency. It's respect. It's showing someone your spreadsheets, not hiding them in a safety deposit box they don't know exists. Real love doesn't protect you from truth. It invites you into truth, even when truth is messy and complicated and difficult. Bob didn't love me enough to be honest, but I love myself enough to demand honesty now. Last Tuesday, at exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I went to the bank. Not Bob's bank, my bank. The one with my name, my signature, my account. I deposited my paycheck from the bookstore. Then, I transferred $50 to savings, the emergency fund I'm building from scratch, the security I'm creating for myself. The teller smiled at me. "Have a good day, Miss Sullivan." Ms. Sullivan, not Mrs. Not someone's wife or widow, just me. I walked out into the afternoon sunlight, my purse light because my bank account was still modest, my shoulders light because the weight of lies was finally gone. At 64, I'd discovered my husband's betrayal. At 64, I'd also discovered something more valuable. Myself. And that was worth more than $400,000 could ever buy.